Like you don't work on coding every day, but you still need to know tech because that's eventually what your team is working on.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's super important. Like for example, you said, taking 2 hours of that 1 week on a Friday just to either learn a new skill or learn some new automation that could maybe save 30 minutes of your time every week going forward. Like it just compounds over time. Like imagine if you're doing that 2 hours every week and you're shaving 30 minutes off, like 1 hour off, like over maybe like in the span of maybe like 6 months or like to a year, you probably save one day a week on just like doing work.
Yeah, and I would say it's for me, right? And it's even been more than that because when I'm investing that 2 hours of learning something, I usually do set up some time with someone else in the org or someone else in the company saying, hey, I know you worked on this, why don't we connect? Right? And we pure code or we learn something together. So eventually it's not just me learning a tech, but also me building that network, right?
Nice,
Where in the future, if I have a question, I do know the right person to go to.
Yeah.
So that's how, like, even though I've just been in the company for 9 months at this point, I've spoken with at least 20 people outside of my product team, right? That's just, I connect with them over seeing their GitHub. I know they've been working on something which is exciting to me. Just connect with them, learn from them, and I don't have to reinvent the wheel. And I do have a connect as well. If I need some help, I can go to them in the future.
Nice. Yeah, I definitely found that to be like extremely powerful. One is the part of finding an expert.
Yeah.
That's gonna save you tons of time because they've done all that research for you.
Exactly.
You're basically picking the brain of like a top expert. They summarize everything for you already. And then the second thing is building that network. That's extremely powerful.
Yeah, and I think, and as an engineer, I've seen it's very difficult in the engineering DNA for you to network, right? Because most of the problems you can solve by yourself. So I think you need to take that extra step where you connect with people because that can take you long ways.
So I think you're kind of right on point there. I think a lot of people, it's not in their nature to go and socialize and network and kind of build that connection. So could you maybe share like a tip or two that you have for either networking with experts like that or like finding people that could help, with your work or your project?
Yeah, so a few things that I would recommend, right? And that's what I have learned. So I did do a couple of management related courses, even though I was an engineer. And those are like just 3-month certification courses. The way it helped me, right? Like in those 3 months, I met a cohort of people who were not just engineers, and they were from different streams. So they could be from medical, a few of them were firefighters, a few of them were actually mountain climbers, and a few of them were engineers. And I think within that space, since it was like 15 people, but they were not from my stream, I just learned how to talk to them. How do you communicate without the engineering lens? How do you look at problems out of the engineering lens? Because most of the time as an engineer, you start thinking about solutioning. And while I was talking to those people, I realized that it's not solutioning that I should be talking about, but it's a problem itself. So that helped me one. Second thing that really helped me, and I was surprised, I reached out to at least 200 plus directors, senior directors, VPs, SVPs of tech companies, just saying that, hey, I want to learn, right? Like I see you've reached somewhere and I'm sure you have a playbook. Can you share that playbook with me? And I just cold messaged them on LinkedIn, and you'd be surprised, like 7 to 10% of them actually got back, and I had one-on-ones with them. And that not only helped me with the domain knowledge, but that also helped me how to start a communication. Like it takes courage to get out of your comfort zone. But once you've done it like 5 times, the 6th time it's way easier, right? So that's a few things that I did.
Got it. Wow. So what's like the script that you used to like email these people?
Yeah, and so you do need to be respectful of the time, but at the same point you do need to be authentic. I used to tell them that, hey, I'm an IC. I want to be a leader at some point, and I see you have gone through that career, and if there are any shortcuts that I could take, learn from your mistakes, I'd love to do that. So could you give me like 30 minutes? And it's totally fine if they say no. And most of the times they won't even reply, right? But you need that perseverance where you're going to message 20 people every day, just hoping that one person's going to reply.
Got it. So for that 7 to 10% of the people that ended up replying and then you had like one-on-ones with them, what would you summarize as like your main kind of things that you learned from them? maybe like pick one or two, right?
Yeah, so I think one thing that I really learned from all of them is they were more comfortable being themselves than saying this is the right way to go about something. So what that means is most of those folks were very authentic in what they were doing, and they were very okay with saying, no, this is out of my comfort zone, or no, this is something that I don't know, or it's okay, you can teach me this. They were just more true to themselves and they're more true to me. And I think that was something which impressed me the most, saying that, oh, he's an SVP at Google and he's saying, no, I don't know how to do this. So that just shows being vulnerable is okay, and that is something that I learned from them.
Okay. Do you think that's also confidence? You know, because they've reached at that point in their lives and they have that confidence to be able to say, yeah, I don't know that stuff. It's okay because I know I'm capable of either knowing someone who knows how to solve that problem, or I know that I can figure it out if I give it more time. So it sounds like maybe it's also like a loop.
It could be a loop, but I think it's also something that they have trained themselves with, right? Like at some point, I think it's not a binary switch that all of a sudden they got a confidence of saying, okay, I'm not okay with this. This would have been something that they would have been training. Either they are that material, right? Or majority of the people have been training themselves at being vulnerable.
Got it.
Like they're okay with saying, oh, hey, I don't know this, and seeing how that spans out in the next 6 months or 3 months, and then they collect data saying it's okay, like my relation has not spoiled, or they don't think about me being smaller just because I don't know something, and now they build that confidence. So I think it's more of a process rather than just a designation which gives them that confidence.
Okay, got it. Oh, that was definitely super impressive. You having, reached out to like 200 plus people, VPs, SVPs, and I found that, I think it tells a lot about the types of personality that you have, right? It feels like you're a little bit more, and this is something that my friends told me about myself that I didn't realize too, because I think I'm sort of like that type of like, I like meeting new people. I like chatting with them, kind of learning about their experience. And also from like me creating YouTube content, it's given me sort of like I don't know what's a good word to describe this, but it's basically, I don't feel embarrassed to reach out to people, to talk to them, because I'm genuinely interested in knowing about their life, about the problems that they solve, about like the careers that they had. So it's never really crossed my mind to feel, maybe this person might think that I'm intruding into like their personal space. But talking to some other friends, it scares them to even reach out to someone that they've never talked to before, right? It's just for them, it's unimaginable to do something like that. So I think there's definitely different types of people where one is they feel more comfortable reaching out to people that they never talked to, but they do end up building a really good relationship that way. And for the other group where they feel very scared of reaching out to people, right? They might get limited in their own space where they can't find those experts or people that they are gonna help them grow in their career. So
yeah, and I think there's a process, right? And this is what I would highly recommend, right? It's always easier to reach out to people offline than online. What I mean is it's easier for me to...
Sorry, you say it's easier to reach offline or?
Yeah, so it's easy to reach, just to message someone on LinkedIn. It's not going to be as frightening for me compared to walking up to you saying, hey, how's it going?
Okay.
Right?
Like so, in person, asking them like, hey, can you...
Yeah, right? Like, and honestly at this point, right, like I would say 2 years ago, I was super scared to just meet a stranger and say, hey, what's going on, right? But I started with the offline process of messaging people, like, because that was the easiest step. I got comfortable with it. Then I started at a point where I'm like, hey, can you have a Zoom call with me, right? Which is, I'm still in my safe environment. I'm just going to be talking to someone who's not like next to me. That's step 2. Third is when I'm like, okay, I'm comfortable with that. I meet that same person for a coffee, right? Where now I'm getting out of that bubble, also meeting that person in the physical space and being okay with that. And I think the last step is where you just go in a meetup and saying, hey, how's it going? Like, let's start a conversation, right? I think it's a process, and wherever you are, there's always a next step for you.
Got it. So what would you recommend? So I guess like your recommendation there was, there are multiple steps to it. Take the first step first, which is messaging someone and see where that goes from there.
Yeah.
But is there some techniques or tips that you want to give people who are even like starting out to say like, I want to know this person, I want to learn about their skills, I want to learn about their expertise. How would you recommend them like even crafting that email? Like what would they kind of look like?
Yeah, so I would say first, you should know what you're looking out of that conversation, right? It shouldn't be like you're just having a conversation not knowing what you want to get out of it, right? That's one. Second thing is have a list of things that you want to talk about or what you want to learn about them, right? Every one-on-one that I even go for today, it could be with my director or it could be with someone who reports into me. I have an agenda ready that just makes me more confident saying that I'm going to make good use of their time and my time. So I would say the same thing, right? If you're going to jump on a call with someone or you want to message someone, have a clear agenda and have clear expectations. That's the second piece, right? And then when you're meeting that person, use the commonality that you have with that person just to break the ice, right? Because it's the first 5 minutes of a conversation are going to be difficult. But once you have broken an ice at any one of those levels, you're going to be fine holding rest of the conversations on that.
Got it. Yeah, I really like that. I think I think that naturally for me too, like I try to find it's either a shared interests, maybe it's sports, maybe where we went to school, or maybe like movies that we like to watch. Kind of build that commonality between the two of you, and then that's where you can start that conversation because like we're in the same tribe basically.
Yeah.
Kind of building that safe space.
Yeah.
That's a really good tip.
One other thing, right, that I've realized is people are willing to help. Like, if you reach out to a senior director or a VP or a CTO or a CEO, I would say a significant portion of those people do want to give back to the community. They do want to share their learning, right? There is that urge to do as well. So if you're not messaging someone wondering that, hey, they're not, why would they reply, right? I would say don't think that way. There is a significant portion of people who want to give back to the community, who want to help folks. So have that mentality and message people.
Got it. And I think one kind of question I also get from people, right, is that you're asking these people out for time, valuable time, like 30 minutes of their time to meet and grab coffee. What is the value that they can provide for that other person? Is that something that, because I think the context behind this is that you want to have a value exchange, right? They're meeting you, they're sharing their expertise. That's the value that you get from them. What is the value that you can provide for them? Maybe you're not at that place in their career yet. There's no extra knowledge that you can provide. So how do you think about this?
Yes, I would say you are helping them without even knowing you're helping them, right? Like two things. One is the urge to help, right? Like let's say if I become a CTO tomorrow, I would love to help an Akshay today to grow to that level, to not make the same mistakes that I would have made, right? And just by taking guidance itself is helping them, right? Where they're getting that urge fulfilled that, hey, I've helped someone, right? That's one. Second thing is that by you asking some questions to them, you're giving them insights about how other people are thinking, right? There could be, so let's say I'm a new graduate, I've just started my new job and I reach out to CTO. That CTO is now going to get ideas about how new grads are thinking. And he might be managing a team of new grads and he might make some decisions out of it. In return, so a lot of calls I've had, right? In return, the CTOs have asked me, hey, how do you think about online working versus offline? How do you think about remote work? How do you think are you equally effective? So I think those signals are something that they're looking for as well. So you could provide them with that. So I don't think it's a waste of their time at all.
Got it. Yeah, I really like that first way of thinking of, you're providing value to them by essentially satisfying their urge, like their need to help others.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Right. Like eventually it's like a community, right? Where you want to help your community. It's like you're a part of the tech community, right? And you're helping some engineer today and you like a nostalgia hits you as well, right? That, hey, when I was an SD1, like this is how I thought about things and look how mature the SD1s today are, right? Like things like that.
Yeah, exactly. I hear also a lot of engineers who say like, I want to mentor others, but there's no mentee. So you're solving a problem for like all these CTOs, VPs, exactly too, right? They're because they don't, probably not every day they get someone who reaches out to them and says like, hey, we're in the same area, or like, I've been following your career for a while and I'd love to get some tips from you.
Yeah, and I think this is what my CTO at Remitly was talking about recently. As you grow up in your career, it is lonely up there. Like, as an SDE, right, or as a manager or a senior manager, as a director, you might have more people who you can talk to, discuss ideas, be vulnerable, all of that. As in when you get higher, it does get lonelier out there. And I think lonelier with respect to you getting like the feedback loop channels, that becomes difficult, right? And just by asking for help, it gives them that feedback, right? And one other thing is, I think it is, if I am working for a company, I might be a little shy to go to the CTO saying, hey, can you set up a one-on-one, right? But if I'm an outsider who doesn't work for that company, that CTO is just another stranger for me. So I'm going to set up some time and give some feedback to him, and he's going to give me some advice. So I think that's a mutually beneficial relation.
Got it. Yeah, I like that idea. Plus, especially that part of you, kind of the questions that you ask, the perspective that you bring to the conversation, right? That's value for them, because that might spark another insight for them, right? Maybe, in terms of how they grow the managers in their org, or how do they bring on more tech leads who are interested in growing into managers. What are the questions that they might have? So it's a two-way street right there.
Yeah, and this is something I realized, right? So when I started these messages and these calls in 2021, that is when remote work was relatively new, right? In 2020 is when we started, and 2021 was like everyone was remote. A surprising trend that I found in all the calls that I had like almost 20 to 30 calls with these leaders. All of them at the end asked me that, hey, are you happy with remote work? So I realized that they are also looking for some signal, and all of the CTOs or senior directors, they are also thinking about the same thing, and they are looking for a feedback loop from me. So I gave them my feedback, and I gave them my honest reviews that, hey, I've been at Microsoft, I've been working remote, I've never gone to the office, I don't find a connect, right? I think that feedback for them will help them decide what should be the culture within their company.
Got it. So that kind of brings to your second point, like the second trend that you're excited about, right? Which is return to office.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think different companies call it different things. At Remitly, we call it connected work. I think it is helpful, right? Like you being in office, you being in the same physical space, you being able to whiteboard. Given we do have the tech for all of that, but I don't think so. The tech is exactly there at this point where you do feel the same way as you would have felt being in the same room. So I think connected work is important, and you need to be in a physical space. Now, there are caveats, right? Depends upon the kind of role, depends upon the frequency, right? It could be that once a month for me is okay, compared to for you, it might be you need to be in office once a week. So I think that is something which is totally different. That's one. Second thing, I think we do, even though we are going for connected work or RTO, we need to understand the biases that we have, and we need to correct them. So let's say, if we say we are working 3 days or 2 days or 1 day from office and rest of the day we are at home, you need to make sure as a manager or as a director or as an employee that you are not biased towards someone who is in office. And that could be an unconscious thing, right? Because subconscious thing, right? Because it could be that just because that person was right in front of you, you shared some information, right? And you don't even think about it, right? So those are few biases that you should understand. And even if you have, you should recognize them and try to auto-correct them over time.